This video was made possible by our amazing channel members, all at the Law Sworn level, Paladin Steve, Stug, and Skull. Thank you very much. Hello! Today I'm going to talk to you about memes and why they're bad. Well, not necessarily. You see, back in the day when I was running for my full COVID group still, I had a campaign which I dubbed Bravo Company or Bravo Team, because it was the second one. And that's what they went by in game as well, Bravo Company, as in, bravo. This company consisted of a very short Mimi Tabaxi bard, a druid. I believe he was one of those elves from the Feywild that I quite like, but can't remember the name of off the top of my head. A dragonborn sorcerer, a tiefling ranger, a tiefling warlock, and there was somebody else who I can't remember. Oh well. This is the issue with these kinds of campaigns. You remember the meme character, who in this case was the Tabaxi bard, who far outshone the rest of the company. I remember at one point that she made some lovely artwork, which I'm displaying as I'm talking. I remember at one point that this character went down a minecart track into a kobold dungeon, and as it was doing so, was shooting kobolds with its slingshot, a cartoon-style slingshot. And it was funny, and it was a good night, and we all had fun, and it was a good time. But I actually got to wondering, several weeks into that campaign, if this was what I wanted my game to be. The game itself was based on saving a region of a world from the machinations of a young green dragon who was far more powerful than she had any right to be. If you go to my How to Dragon video, this is where the concept of Feolas, who in this campaign was called Focalas, comes from. And they slew the dragon and they did the thing, and many a laugh was had. But not many people remember that campaign, I should wager. And so, for my third campaign and final campaign with the whole of the COVID group, I decided to set it in my homebrew world of Varfal. Varfal itself is sort of a mythological sword and sorcery world, which takes quite a bit of inspiration from Tolkien. As in, it's very rare to find things out of their proper place. I banned the players from having so-called exotic races. You weren't allowed to be a tabaxi or a tiefling. You had to be the basics, the fantasy staples. A human, an elf, or a dwarf, most likely. And that's what we had, a party of humans, elves, and dwarves. In fact, I think it was mostly human. Now, this party itself was very much more grounded. Out of the gate, it was much more grounded in the world in which I set it, because one, I know my homebrew world quite well, and so I was able to give a lot of information to the players to help them craft a character that actually fit the style of campaign I was wanting to run. This campaign was based in the Westling, in the capital city of Dreer to start with, and they spent many a long month, real life months, having sessions in the city of Dreer, getting to know the townsfolk, getting to know the NPCs, doing quests in the sewers a lot of the time, and basically treating it as a sandbox city campaign, until eventually they went south to stop a cult of the Dark Lady's magical rituals back there. By the time they got back north, the city was under siege by a cult of the Dark Lady, and they had to sort that out. We had 7 characters, 7 players playing 7 characters. When they did the final fight against the big bad outside the city during a sally forth, we ended the campaign with 3 surviving characters. All of what they did was incredibly serious. There were moments of levity and of brevity along the way. But I want now to focus a little bit more on certain aspects of why these characters approaching the situation and only some of them returning impacted my players in the way that it did. Firstly, if you have not yet, please do like the video, give me a comment below, and tell me who your favorite basic character was that you played or would want to play. Mine was Arthur Valens quite recently, a human fighter that I played very much like a rogue who had to kill one of his best friends in order to save a city, and that forced him into an early retirement. Because if you think your human fighter is boring, chances are you're boring. Now, Back to the stories. The party went forth from the capital city at the head of an army. Their job was to use the army as sort of distraction, and whilst the battle was going on, they would approach the main command tent of the Dark Lady's army. They had beforehand crafted magical rings to enable them to approach without being paralyzed the hell out of. That's a story for another time. The main character that I want to focus on is actually the same character that played the Tabaxi Bard in Bravo Company. This time she was playing a knight. His name was Aaron Thundersmith, a half-elf who started the campaign as a bright-eyed squire to a knight of the city. Halfway through the campaign, he became an actual fully-fledged knight. And at the end, he went out with a big hammer, shiny plate armor, marched up that hill, right up to the Dark Lady, Malphaela herself, and tried to bonk her. The two crossed weapons as fights all around the field occurred, and the party attempted to take down the Dark Lady. Sadly, Aaron Thundersmith succumbed to the cursed sword of the Dark Lady, the black blade known as Light Cleaver. Very much a Stormbringer ripoff, I'm afraid. And it absorbed his essence and stored it in a slot. The way I mechanically made this sword is if it killed you, you dropped to 0 HP, there were no death saves. You were dead, and your soul was placed in the sword. She then had several abilities, tables that she could roll on to use charges based on the amount of souls she had. This also happened to another character, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, he died and was placed in the sword, and the fight continued. This 4-5 hour long fight culminated in 1 or 2 last rounds where the party was able, I think through the machinations of the cleric, to roll a die. And the die landed on a result that enabled them to bring back the golden spirit, the ghost of Aaron Thundersmith, to do one last glorious smite on the BBEG before his soul ascended to be with Sayad, his god. That was a cool moment. And it was a moment that sticks with me even now, because this character had gone through a lot. Bright-eyed squire, shiniest knight, full of hope and life, and is about to beat the bad guy, and is then killed in the attempt, only for his friends to enable him to come back and get one last good kick in. The second character had a slightly different arc. A friend of mine, a blacksmith in real life, was playing a dwarf called Karzag, and he said to me, all I want is for Karzag to survive. Well, Karzag had recently reclaimed his clan's familial axe, the Axe of Black, from an orc chief that had stolen it. And so he was on a high. This chosen this dwarf who had been exiled from his mountain home because of the loss of the Axe of Black, had reclaimed it, had been proclaimed the chief of his clan, had brought in reinforcements from the dwarf home using his newfound political power to help in this battle, charged up the hill alongside Aaron Thundersmith, alongside his other dwarf companions, alongside the humans and elf. Charged up that hill, Axe of Black in hand, crossed blades with Malphaela, and died. The sword Light Cleaver absorbed his soul, and unfortunately for him, the one thing he wanted was for Karzag to survive. She rolled on her table, she got the result that enabled her to consume entirely the essence of a trapped soul to restore quite a bit of hit points. And Karzag was not just dead, he was doubly dead. Very much a shame, but he went out a hero. Thirdly, Kitty and Catkin. My wife playing a rogue called Kitty and my friend playing a rogue called Catkin charged up the hill with their party to go and take on Malphaela. They survived all the way to the second phase where Malphaela was this big ghosty thing all of a sudden. And at the last hurdle, Catkin was killed. Not by the sword, thankfully, so her soul moved on to an afterlife. But this is where, at the funerals afterwards, my wife shed real tears over the death of her character's friend. These sorts of moments where, yes, there was levity and jokes and things along the way. These sorts of moments can really be amplified by allowing a campaign to have a serious tone and tenor from the get go. When you ask your players as a friend, but as a DM first, but as a friend first and foremost before that, you ask your players to take your world, what you're giving them, seriously, and you present it in a genuine a way as you can. It enables them to sort of base and ground themselves more in the world that's being presented. The doing away of monstrous races, the doing away of playing orcs and half orcs, and that sort of thing enables people to draw more direct lines of good and evil, which people go, oh, don't you want some more interesting moral grayness? Not really, because it's within this fight, this struggle of good versus evil, this titanic, cataclysmic clash at the end of this journey that the emotions of hurt, of pain, of sorrow, and bitter victory and hope for the future come out. I would also say that I used 5th edition for this campaign, but I wouldn't anymore. I would go for a system that was a much less anime. I would de-animify the system that I wanted to use. That I think would be important. Grounding, where the man with the sword is able to change the course of history as much as the wizard with the fireball, is very important. I think it's very, very important indeed. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to the Wayward Realms, for instance, is this idea that magic is rare and special. I wouldn't call it low fantasy. I would call it mythological fantasy, because there was still much magic about that battlefield, and yet the players themselves were primarily martial. They only really had one caster in the group, which I think is the best ratio, is one caster per adventuring group. Well, unless you count the cleric, but he was sword and, well, hammer and board cleric. Yes, do kill the memes, ground your party, present to them a genuine world, and expect from them a genuine place in it. If you liked this video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. In fact, in the comments, again, tell me, what was the best basic character you ever played? Mine was Arthur Valance, the fighter. Well, that's the 4th time I think I've tried recording this, so I'm tired now. And that's what's going out. That's it. It's done. Good night, everyone. Did you enjoy this video? I certainly hope you did. You might expect some music here, but YouTube really doesn't like me using royalty-free stuff and keeps flagging it. So go ahead, drop me a like, drop me a subscribe, leave me a comment. Check out my friends the Brass Drake and Dean of Untold Destiny, the little spinning heads there, and click on the other video. Please do, it really helps out the channel a lot. Have a good one.